I want to make clear, I was a part of the crime, but I didn't commit the act. And I think that that is what people need to really remember. So I paid my dues. I did my time for my part of things. Right. Now let me live my life and just grow as a person. Everybody deserves a second chance.
Okay, let's talk about Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
I am about ready to get ready for a photo shoot. I know that I did something wrong. I paid my consequences. I'm living my best life and y'all can't take that from me.
And it appears that the entire Gypsy Rose story may have been a lie.
She taught me how to be a good liar.
If I say something that a normal husband would say, then I'm like controlling her and I'm like her mother.
She's not pregnant for everybody who keeps asking.
No.
We're just hanging out as friends, that's all it is.
This is absolutely 100% Ken's baby.
I understand that I broke Ryan's heart. I left the marriage. I was not a good wife.
Half of everybody still wants to condemn me, and the other half is rooting for me.
Have you ever been manipulated by someone you trusted? How did that make you feel? What if they had been manipulated by someone they trusted? Would that make you feel any different? Yes, no? Imagine waking up one day feeling isolated. It's one of those freezing, overcast, dreary kind of days, and you open up TikTok, which feels like your only connection to the outside world, and suddenly a familiar face flashes across your screen, and it's your former best friend, the one who, in your mind, betrayed you so deeply you feel like you lost years of your life, kind of lost in the frustration and the pain that it caused you. Except while you're here, cold and all alone, your friend is now a glamorous celebrity, sipping wine, extravagant dinners, and taking selfies with Kim Kardashian. She's having the best time ever while you're having the worst. And so your frustration turns to anger. This is messed up. You think, why does she get to smile while you're just another forgotten person? But what if behind the glossy Hollywood cover spreads, the fancy premieres and adoring fans, what if behind your former friend's smile was also pain, frustration, misery? Except for your ex-bestie, the entire world is watching and weighing in on it. What if the world who once adored her was now turning on her? How would that make you feel? Good? Bad? Nothing at all? This is the twisted reality of Gypsy Rose Blanchard's life after prison, and wow, has it changed over the last year. We all know the story, right? Deception, murder, betrayal, and instant celebrity. But the story doesn't end there. Brace yourself. This one is both intense and a little unhinged. And this is what we know. So, Gypsy Rose Blanchard has officially been out of prison almost 1 full year. She was released on December 28th, 2023, and it has been a wild ride ever since. Now, many of you have probably seen my part 1 doc on her ongoing story closer to when she was released, but in case you haven't, I highly recommend that you check it out. We dive really deep into her case, her release, some unaddressed allegations, evidence that's often overlooked, and hear a lot more from Nick Godijohn, her ex-boyfriend, who is still serving a life sentence without parole for his part in the murder of Gypsy Rose's mother, Dee Dee Blanchard. I also conducted several Q&A style interviews with many of you who have been diagnosed with either ASD or DID, as well as mental health professionals, to get your insight into how you felt about cases that focus, at least part of their defense, on those types of diagnoses. So why are we talking about Gypsy Rose again? Well, things have gotten volatile. When she was released, a huge percentage of the internet was celebrating her with adoration and praise, and now a lot of the internet has turned on Gypsy Rose. There's wild new conspiracy theories, unhinged Hollywood drama, TikTok accusations that she somehow faked everything, and a baby bump. It's an absolute shite show and perfect for reality TV.
Hi, I'm Gypsy Rose Blanchard, and this is my first In-N-Out burger ever. I got a double-double.
Animal style.
That's hot. They're a little skinny. And as you can see, I'm nothing but skinny.
Now, speaking frankly, my opinion of the story hasn't really changed from my part 1. There's a lot about this story that I greatly empathize with. There's also a lot that troubles me. I personally am not a fan of Gypsy Rose being a celebrity. I don't follow her on socials. I probably never will, and honestly, it doesn't matter. Like, I think she went through some heinous stuff, allegedly. I think she did some heinous stuff that she was convicted of, and I think Hollywood is weird as Shocking. And I wonder how much of this turn of public opinion is because of Gypsy Rose herself and her crimes, and how much of it is legitimate manipulation, either from her, if any, or from something or someone else. But first, oh hi, hello, hi, it's my face again, Swoop! If you're seeing me for the first time, welcome. My name is Swoop and I'm a documentary filmmaker, commentary creator, and here we deep dive with Swoop docs on unsolved cases, true crime, and social media influencers who abuse their power and manipulate audiences because, as I always say it with me, it's not drama, it's dangerous. We also dig deeper into perspectives, play devil's advocate, and sometimes we take it to petty university, yes, because petty is my coping mechanism for the BS in life, okay? Have you all enrolled? Class is in session. Friends, I am so very excited to finally be able to announce our brand new apparel release, the Unbroken collection. Look it. Wait, let me show the back. I love this so much. This is a sister to the Valid Ribcage collection. I have been working so hard on this, and you can grab your pieces right now in the Petty University shop, linked below. And right now I'm having a huge Black Friday sale for a limited time where you can get up to 20% off select items when you tap my link below or go to crowdmade.com/swoop. I'll show you the design real quick and then I'll give a little explanation for the story behind it. On the front, we have the word Unbroken, and we have these birds that are beautifully flying up the sleeve. And then on the back, there is also the word Unbroken. And then there are these steps that are leading up to this opening with this bird that's taking flight, and it's kind of like moving from this darkness into this place of light here. So let me explain the design now. As many of you know, I shared several months ago that this has been a really hard year. Like, I had spent all of this time in these years like fighting and climbing towards healing and happiness, just to like, you know, bam, like get knocked down once again and fall all the way back down. And so I took some time off of just kind of like you just like reevaluate like your whole life. I had listened to this old song that I wrote forever ago called Free. Now, I never released the song, but it was in one of my films. And I wrote the song because back then I was feeling broken. And so here I was now, years later, feeling the same. Like I had kind of made like zero progress. You know what I mean? I just shared what was going on, and y'all reminded me, even in hard times, somehow we keep going. We get back up those steps. We start climbing all over again, because as I've come to learn, what I thought was brokenness was just pain and fear that was ready to take flight and find its purpose, and that we are, in fact, unbroken. And so these are just honestly like a piece of me. It's an extension of just how I was feeling. For me, a part of getting back on those steps is being creative. So I am so freaking excited about this collection. The left sleeve have these beautiful birds that kind of broke free and are flying up the arm. And this is the first time that I've ever designed a piece with print on the arm. On the front, they have the word Unbroken in my signature font. If you look closely, there is a ghosted cutout of a bird, and I am just so in love with that detail. On the back, this is just so special to me. So there's the staircase again, and along each of these steps are actually lyrics from the bridge of my song. And it's just a message that I wanted to share with all of you, and something that I hope you tell yourself. So I will read them really quick. I'm free, unbroken. Yes, I'm chosen. Sleep awoken. It's my moment. Fighting, climbing, live not dying. I'll be flying high. So this is a limited edition collection, and there are just 2 unisex hoodies with the 2 different colorways. We have this beautiful lavender sky and this gorgeous cloud black. The lavender sky is officially the softest hoodie that we have ever had. It is our premium heavyweight, so it is a touch thicker, even cozier, and so plush. And then we have the black cloud, and I just love this so much. This is 100% cotton, and just like the Valid and Suspool collections, each hoodie receives a custom mineral wash, making each hoodie a one-of-a-kind work of art. And this one has the most beautiful cloud aesthetic. It's like the birds are literally flying through the clouds, and I'm so obsessed with this. I also just released the Valid Ribcage in a brand new, beautiful vintage olive color. And we also have the Suspool Season 1 collection. So all these pieces are available right now, just in time for the holidays. So tap the link below to grab your pieces from the Unbroken collection. And right now I'm having a huge Black Friday sale for a limited time time where you can get up to 20% off select items when you tap my link below or go to crowdmade.com/swoop. This is the biggest sale I've ever had. It's only gonna last a few days, so you can get up to 20% off select items right now. And thank you with all of my heart again for just allowing me to be creative. I wanna create things that have empowered me that I think might empower you. That's the reason for these collections. I just love having positive messaging on the back so that when total strangers are looking at this and they're just reading it for themselves, they're getting a little positive message for themselves as well. And also thank you for just listening, honestly. And to those of you who get pieces, thank you for supporting me as a small woman-owned business. It just truly means so much. I'm so blown away that I get to do any of this. So thank you for just being a part of this. I do gotta give a big thank you to our sponsor because without them, we don't keep the lights on here. So a huge thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this video, and then we will jump right in to Gypsy Rose. Okay, we are going to dive deep into the story, but real quick, we all know the most exciting thing about Black Friday are the amazing deals, and we know with Raycon, you get amazing deals on premium audio every day of the year. So it's even more incredible when Raycon doubles down by offering all of you, my wonderful viewers, up to 30% off site-wide. So thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this video, and to all of you for checking them out for Black Friday, which is a great way to support this channel and get something amazing for yourself or the perfect gift for that certain someone who you just don't know what to get them. You know what I'm talking about. I have been hyping these babies up for years now, but their latest model, honey, okay, first of all, they come in the cutest new colors. I am literally obsessed with the blush violet, of course, but they now feature a massive 32-hour battery life. Like seriously, these things never die, and they have the most incredible active noise cancellation. It is such a game changer. So I wore these babies on a long flight, and the moment I popped them in, it was like the world disappeared. The screaming child behind me was no match for this noise cancellation. And they have multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at the same time. What? I cannot explain how amazing it is to be able to connect to my phone and my laptop or my iPad at the same time. And the best part, Raycon started just half the price of the other guys, but when you add up to 30% off site-wide, honey, it is a no-brainer. I wear my Raycons everywhere all the time, working out, running errands, taking calls, cleaning the house. They are hands down the most comfortable earbuds I've ever worn. Like no joke, like I can wear these for hours and not even notice that they're in my ears, and they never fall out. So I had the older generation, which were amazing. I mean, over 3 million people got a pair, but this new model is end game incredible. And on top of that, they have a new quick charge function where you can get 90 minutes of battery after only 10 minutes of charge. Love that for us. Like how cute are these? I just love this color so freaking much. They come with a matching capsule case, and I love these protective case covers. How cute is that? So my vibe. And even better, the covers support wireless charging. Perfection. Seriously, if you want the most incredible noise canceling earbuds with the best sound and battery life at an incredibly affordable price, and it also makes a great gift for those people you don't know what to get for, it is time to save big for Black Friday. Go to buyraycon.com/swoop today to get up to 30% off site-wide. That's right. You'll get up to 30% off of everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/swoop, and treat yourself, honey. You deserve it. Okay, back to the doc. There's a chill in the air and a light dusting of snow on the ground in Chillicothe, Missouri, and a blanket of stars spans the dark early skies. It's December 28th, just 3 days after Christmas, and as the heavy-duty chain link fence retracts, Gypsy Rose Blanchard takes a deep breath, leaving the Chillicothe Correctional Institute and taking her first steps as a free woman, walking straight into the waiting arms of her then-husband, Ryan Anderson, or should I say, into the passenger seat of his idling sedan.
Oh, it so feels so weird being in a car.
Yeah, I get to touch your leg. Oh, I missed you.
I miss you too.
We'll get into that, but first let's go a little bit into the past, because one of the main issues the public has is about her former boyfriend, Nick Godejohn, who says that she planned the murder of her mother and needed him to save her.
Did Gypsy know that you were gonna kill her mother?
Honestly, she asked me to.
Do we need a very crude crash course on the backstory? Does that help? Okay, so Gypsy Rose Blanchard, here's the cheat code. She's now infamous thanks to a television series about her stranger than fiction upbringing, which involved her allegedly abusive mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, insisting that Gypsy had severe disabilities, including things like cancer, blindness, and allegedly forcing Gypsy Rose to pretend she couldn't walk. And yes, I have to use the words like allegedly for legal reasons. You all know that because some people are contesting some of the claims. Does that mean I believe the contesting of the claims? No, it doesn't. But bottom line, Gypsy Rose's heartbreaking story of deceptive childhood illness and medical bills were used to swindle people out of money, getting free trips from things like Make-A-Wish Foundation, a new house from Habitat for Humanity, and generally receiving charity from their trusting friends and neighbors. Except Gypsy wasn't as sick as Dee Dee claimed. Instead, her mother had lied to her for years about her health. This alleged condition, known as fictitious disorder imposed on another, aka Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which most people still refer to it that way, so we'll refer to it that way, but quote, is a psychological disorder marked by attention-seeking behavior by a caregiver through those who are in their care. MSPB is a relatively rare behavioral disorder. It affects a primary caretaker, often the mother. The person with MSP gains attention by seeking medical help for exaggerated or made-up symptoms of a child in their care. As healthcare providers strive to identify what's causing the child's symptoms, the deliberate actions of the parent or caretaker can often make the symptoms worse. And so Gypsy had grown tired of this ruse when she started kind of putting some puzzle pieces together, to say the least. And her mother had infantilized her for long enough, and that led to an eventual rebellion. After managing to, get a laptop and sneak some social media on there, Gypsy Rose joined online dating websites and chat rooms where, for the first time, she was able to pursue romance. And it was there she found her just Prince Charming in the form of a young man named Nicholas Godijohn. Away from the prying eyes of her mother, Gypsy Rose was finally discovering herself and realizing the life her mother had kept from her. And as you all likely know, long story short, Gypsy Rose asked Nick to help her be free of her mother for good. Again, I cover this in full detail in part 1 if you want all of the details. But Nick showed up at Gypsy Rose's and Dee Dee's house and took her mother's life. And while Gypsy Rose technically didn't physically do the kill, as she refers to it, the act, she planned the act with Nick, helped get the weapon, and gave Nick access to the house and was there when it happened, allegedly shaving her legs at some point.
I don't associate myself as a murderer because if you think about it, yes, I had a part to play in it. I asked Nick for help. So when they say I'm a murderer, I don't identify as that.
Now, there are a ton of people currently speculating about what actually went down that night, with a large part of the internet more recently believing that Gypsy Rose perhaps did indeed participate in the act. There isn't clear-cut evidence to support that theory, but we're not here to debate all of that. I honestly think at the end of the day, no one but Gypsy Rose and Nick will ever know exactly what happened play by play, and even then, who knows what their memories are like. Now, the lovers went on the run together, but they didn't get far, and the police quickly tracked them down and arrested them, where the shocking truth was revealed. Gypsy Rose was not a sickly child, but a full-grown adult woman, at least in the physical sense, who had been manipulated by her mother, allegedly, into keeping up the act. I mean, it's basically the shittiest scenario you could possibly imagine from literally every angle of this case. Like, no matter whose side you might be on and for what reason, it's all a nasty nightmare of a story. Now, Gypsy Rose pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. She took a plea and was sentenced to 10 years in prison, while Nicholas was sentenced to life without parole. Now, like I said this before, it's really important to remember that every state handles cases differently, and his trial happened to be in a state where you either get like the death penalty, or you get out, or you get life without parole. There is no life with parole. So that is a factor in why his sentencing is that. It may have been different if the trial were in a different state. I just think that's important to remember. And many people have a problem with him spending the rest of his life in prison. Now, Nick is a convicted murderer. So is Gypsy Rose. But Gypsy Rose says that she doesn't identify as a murderer. But while Nick is, rotting away behind bars, Gypsy Rose is now walking amongst us as a free woman, having legally served her time. And also, according to the people's serving in general, thanks to TikTok and social media, Gypsy Rose has become something of a pop culture icon. I don't like using that word, but people do. And not to mention the factor, our girl, yes, a woman convicted of second-degree murder, starred in a Lifetime reality series. And that's not all. She's now a full-blown influencer and a second-degree. So life is interesting, and the lines got a little blurry, because if you were to ask Gypsy Rose...
But he's the one that did the actual kill, not me. I can't kill anyone. That's why he's in trouble to begin with, because he's the one that did it. So when they say I'm a murderer, I don't identify as that.
And to be fair, she's also a survivor of incredibly twisted, generational abuse, allegedly. Allegedly, her grandmother abused her mother, Dee Dee. Then Dee Dee allegedly murdered her own mother, and then allegedly also murdered her stepmother, then allegedly abused Gypsy Rose, and Gypsy Rose planned and enabled the murder of her own mother. That's the only thing I don't have to say allegedly to, because she pleaded guilty to it. And this is one of the reasons why people are so worried. Not just because Gypsy Rose has never had a chance to live a normal life, my gosh, but because earlier this year, Gypsy Rose revealed that she is pregnant with her first child, and she's due very, very soon. And people are asking, could the track record of generational abuse in the Blanchard women family history, and obviously the grandfather too, could that somehow continue on? Much of it's speculative, some of it's BS. We're gonna break it down.
My life, yes. She taught me how to be a good liar. A very good liar without any conscience.
Okay, so class, crash course done. Back to the Nick of it all. So I know there are a ton of opinions about Gypsy Rose and Nick, and so we're gonna do what we always do in a Swoop Doc and look at multiple perspectives. I'm not saying one is more right than the other. I have opinions, I'm sure you have opinions, but this is where people were on one side, and now some of them, after time has gone by, have changed their perspective, and you are allowed to change your opinions. So we're gonna play devil's advocate. We do this a lot in Swoop Docs. This is what I like to call point and counterpoint. Okay, don't come for me in the comments. I swear, Your Honor, I'm a different person than I was last week. So, point one, Nick is rotting away in prison while Gypsy Rose gets to have a turkey dinner and open presents around the tree, even though they're both murderers. Counterpoint, isn't that only fair? After the childhood she's endured and the violence that he committed, both against her mother and allegedly against her right after. Leave your thoughts so far in the comments and let me know as we move through this if your opinion of Gypsy Rose or this case or anything has changed since she first got out, because I would love, love, love to know. As time goes on, Gypsy Rose has continued to distance herself from the crime and underscore Nick as the main perpetrator. A lot of people had issues with that. I felt a little strange about it. And now that Gypsy Rose is constantly in the spotlight, it drags Nick's name up along with her quite a bit, right?
Due to all the publicity Gypsy's getting, and she's getting me that publicity too, I feel like I have a responsibility. I want to basically let everyone know that I'm not just this cold killer. Gypsy Rose hasn't really looked back since almost kind of the minute that she and Nick were caught. The police detective, when speaking to Nick's mother, even said, that Gypsy took a little bit of accountability, but not really, and just kind of put it all on Nick.
I know that we both probably have a lot of regrets. I know I have regrets. I can't speak for him, so I really don't know his side of things. All I know is, I did my time, he's doing his time. That's all the best that I can do at this point. For me, I have to focus on myself right now. I can't look in the past and worry about him or anything else going on. I have to prioritize myself in this moment.
And the longer that she's been out, the more central blame she has at times. Not always, okay, to be fair, not always, but sometimes. She put a lot of the blame on Nick, which is a choice. I don't have any feelings for him. He is my ex, he is my past, and I do regret meeting him. Had I met a real man who I confided in to help me get out from under my mother's grasp, I would not be sitting in prison right now. A real man would have called the authorities to get me away from her. I take my responsibility for my part of the crime, but he played the bigger part.
I can't kill anyone. That's why he's in trouble to begin with, because he's the one that did it.
It's been interesting to watch the shifting tides against Gypsy Rose. It's as if, kind of the more celebrity she gains, the more resentment the public has for her, particularly over the drastic differences between her and Nick's sentences. And some of this, I think, is just, there's a delicate balance with instant celebrity where you can very quickly overstay your welcome.
It's 5 days where I was actually with her, physically with her. Those 5 days were the most intense and magical and inspiring days I've ever had.
Nick describes Gypsy Rose as the love of his life, at the time, and even like 4 years after in prison, he was saying things like this because of what she asked him and made him do. Now, in my opinion, there's no excuse for Nick's actions in the crime. They were clearly violent and disturbing, but there's been some new speculation about the motive behind the crime and if Gypsy Rose was possibly capable of manipulating Nick more than previously thought.
Gypsy really pulled at Nicholas's heartstrings. She wanted his sympathy. She wanted him to know just how much she was suffering and how much she needed him to save her.
But again, remember how I've been saying the internet turning against Gypsy Rose? Well, many people who once thought Gypsy Rose was purely a victim of her mother and that's it, are now saying that they think she had spent her entire life manipulating people, even if subconsciously, but that at some point Gypsy Rose knew that the illnesses that Dee Dee invented for her weren't real and that she intentionally went along with it for the attention. It is a big claim, right? That Gypsy Rose knew she could walk, knew she could eat some food without the tube, and so on. So in that perspective, point 2 is when it comes to deception and manipulation, as Gypsy Rose said herself in interviews, she learned how to manipulate, how to lie without thinking about it, without remorse from her mother.
My life, yes. She taught me how to be a good liar, a very good liar without any conscience.
Even if it wasn't an intentional, conscious choice, then Gypsy Rose likely manipulated a vulnerable person into taking the fall, aka Nick Godejohn. And in looking at their text messages, when I went, again, more in depth in part 1, there's a lot of what looks like alleged manipulation going on. But on the counterpoint, that's assuming Gypsy Rose was of the clear mental capacity to even know that what she was doing was manipulation. Does that fairly take into consideration that for much of her developmental years, she was physically and emotionally manipulated by her mother? And if that was going on, how, would she know that her actions towards Nick were manipulative and wrong? But she also knew that it was wrong to murder because they were keeping it secret. It's just, y'all gonna have to ask mental health professionals about that, honey. And even then, I don't know if there's a clear answer. I think it's just a whole mess. I think it's very, very complicated and one of those things that no one's ever gonna be satisfied with whatever the answer is because it's just a tragedy, period. Now, another point. Should we expect the present day grown-up Gypsy Rose, who spent 8-some years in prison, she went straight from that house to prison, essentially, should we expect her to know how to process and behave out of prison? She's had 8 going on 9 years away from that world of her mother. That's a long period of time to be a little separated, right? And it's also a very short period of time.
I'm trying to be a good person now. I don't want to be like my mother, and I'm nothing like her.
And then, if you want to get really meta, on the devil's advocate side, is it possible that Gypsy Rose not only subconsciously learned how to manipulate people by observing her mother, which was kind of against her will, but it's subconscious? Could she then have also learned how to further manipulate people from being exposed to actual criminals in prison? Where do we draw the line? It's a mind bender, right? Again, she spent a lot of time in prison around other people who presumably did things that were bad. So are all of the people in prison just great, wonderful human beings who have the utmost honesty and truth in their behavior? Probably not. I'm sure there's good people in there, and I'm sure there's quite terrible people in there. So what does that mean? And I keep coming back to this, and it's something people say about Nick. I think we have to be careful not to infantilize Gypsy Rose. I see a lot of that going on. People saying, you know, she's just a little girl released from prison, straight from the trauma of her mom. But that's not entirely the scenario either, right? I'm not talking about the trauma part, but she's not a little girl. Yes, she likely had significant impacts to her developing brain as a child, and I'm not a psychologist, so I won't speculate. But to be accurate, again, Gypsy Rose did spend 8 years in prison in a structured adult environment with access to therapists, friends, attorneys talking to her. And there's a little bit of stripping of autonomy here. Like, she isn't just some perpetually fragile little girl who knows nothing. Like, literally watch any interview with her, like any of the two Vial Files podcast episode. She is a well-articulated, intelligent young woman who has a lot of experience, you know, in things like understanding the law, the prison system, public relations, Hollywood. Her voice may sound a little babyish, but she's not a baby anymore, you know? Carries herself very well, and some people still acting like she's just this helpless little girl. I don't think she would want to be called that.
I did some international interviews last night, and one of the questions was like, how do you feel now that you're getting all this attention? You know, but you know, you're a murderer. Oh, so God. Okay. Oh. And everybody in the room just like jumped up and was like ready to like, am I, you know, fight? Am I okay? Yeah. They were freaking out for me, and I'm like, no, guys, I got this. Like, it's something that I'm gonna have to address. Yeah. Because it's always in my comments. Like, why are we glorifying a murderer and this and that and the other? I don't want to have to remind people every single time that I'm not the one that committed the act of the kill.
Now, as we talked about in part 1, well before the crime, Nick Godejohn had been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and after the crime, he made claims that he believed he might have dissociative identity disorder, and elements of this, in particular, like his ASD, became part of his defense strategy during his initial trial in November of 2018, though, as many of you who participated in my questionnaire stressed, people with ASD and DID are more likely to be subjected to abuse than they are to committing violent crime. Rebecca agrees.
Bringing up Nick's autism diagnosis within this trial is extremely harmful.
Now, this goes without saying, but I'll reiterate, obviously we're just talking about the circumstances of this case. We are not here to stigmatize these disorders. People with ASD and DID are not others. They're literally human beings deserving of respect and a healthy and safe life. Now, I want to take a quick moment to thank again all of you truly for the kind and insightful comments on the last doc, like this one from Blockhead 514, which is honestly a great name. Quote, as an autistic person who is so sick of the way we're talked about in society in general, who also loves your videos, I have to admit I was nervous as the video began and the topic of autism inevitably came up, but my heart then filled with a surge of warm relief as you went on to say all good, informed, accurate stuff about us and about autism, without harping on it at all, purely being respectful while actually caring to learn what autistic people prefer. Thank you so much. Anyways, I just wanted to shout that out because I absolutely love hearing from our community, and I know it's not always easy to share something so personal, so thank you for that. Now, back to this case. As Nick describes it, their relationship was more manipulation than love. If I would have known that, I probably would not be in the situation I'm in. Due to my main disability, it's pretty easy for me to be deceived. So he believes because of his ASD diagnosis, he's more vulnerable to being manipulated. And honestly, there were a lot of y'all who commented that being your experience. Quote, hi Swoop, I'm an autistic and would like to say a few things. Autistic people tend to have a naive trust in everyone, hence why we are vulnerable population to abuse. We also tend to be very obedient and easily manipulated since we are so honest and literal. We think everyone else is. We also are bad at reading people and social cues, which leads to missing malicious intent. Having said that, I do not like Nick's diagnosis being brought up in the way it was because we are so infantilized. People have this thought that autistic people are not capable of anything bad, and I cannot stress enough how untrue that is. Of course, we always remember no one's a monolith. Just because this is one person's experience doesn't mean it's everyone's. I'm just sharing to showcase the very vast and valid opinions and perspectives that people have on this story. So thank you for sharing. Now, Goda John's attorney, Dwayne Perry, said doctors have diagnosed him with ASD, which, according to Perry, quote, interferes with a person's ability to envision consequences and think ahead.
In elementary school, he was diagnosed with autism. Nick was autistic, and perhaps he was unable to form the necessary intent to commit first degree.
A low-functioning person with autism.
Is that true specifically for Nick, or was that just a defense? I have no idea. But I do remember after Nick had been arrested and his mother was talking to the police in an interview, told her that Nick was basically gonna have the mental development and mental maturity of a 15 or 16-year-old, which
We always keep a close watch on him because he has. And that's why he's been diagnosed with. Okay, so that's why we kind of, treat him like when he was last doctor I talked to, they said his mind is probably always going to be 15, 16, right around there.
There are a lot of nuances to this. And it went beyond just that. So Gypsy Rose also speculated that Nick has dissociative identity disorder, DID, as formerly known as multiple personality disorder, though we should stress, Gypsy Rose is not a mental health professional. And as we discuss the mental health stuff, I'll just kind of reiterate what I said in part 1, that I'm not a professional. I'm not a mental health professional, so I won't lean one way or another, nor can I make any claim as to whether or not Nick is fully aware or not of the status with his own mental health. I will not be trying to diagnose anyone. I won't be formulating any opinion one way or another on this because I can't. According to Gypsy Rose, in an interview with Dr. Phil in 2017, she observed that Nick had multiple personalities that were violent and scary.
Thought that he was a 500-year-old vampire named Victor.
A 500-year-old vampire named Victor. What'd you think about that?
I was like, oh, okay. I played along, I guess.
You didn't believe it, or did you?
I think a part of me did believe it at the time.
You did believe he was a 500-year-old vampire named Victor living in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to stress again that there's no evidence that Nick was ever formally diagnosed with DID. ASD is his only formal diagnosis that at least I'm aware of. And since attitudes have been shifting, I thought we should revisit this so that people don't, just like jump on misinformation or run around villainizing people actually diagnosed with DID just because, Gypsy Rose or Nick made guesses about this. We love our DID community, and I don't want to see their experiences stigmatized because of how stories like this are discussed. So, you might be asking, Swoop, my dear blue-haired friend, why the hell are we rehashing all of this? Well, after her prison release, there's additional context about Gypsy Rose that may shed new light on the case. Maybe? According to some perspectives, and with the benefit of hindsight a year later, and theoretically rehabilitation in prison, it's worth asking, how does Gypsy Rose feel about Nick now? Quote, a condition of my parole is that I cannot have any contact with him, and I don't want contact. I feel responsible for putting him in this situation. However, the axe to commit murder was on him as well. I mean, everybody has a choice, and he went through with his, and so he's paying his sentence. I paid mine, and that's my thoughts on it. So Gypsy Rose can no longer speak to Nick, but honestly, it's also probably for the best. I mean, the last time that these two conspired together, look what the happened. And when I read that quote, I thought it was interesting for her to say, firstly, that the axe to commit murder was on him as well, which is in direct conflict with her later saying that she didn't commit the act on the Vial Files podcast.
But he's the one that did the actual kill. Not me.
I think that that's one of the reasons why people are souring on Gypsy Rose, not just because of the, incessant barrage of drama and reality TV posting content from her many shows, and not necessarily because everyone now thinks she wasn't harmed by her mother. I don't think it's that, but that her own accountability for her part in the murder is inconsistent at best and manipulative at worst if you're gonna place that accusation. One moment, she's holding herself accountable for the reality of what happened. The next minute, this.
When they say I'm a murderer, I don't identify as that.
And even more interesting, back to that quote of hers, is when she said, everybody has a choice. Nick had a choice not to murder, and so did Gypsy Rose, but they both chose to murder. And over the last 11 months, I've seen the internet speak for Gypsy Rose all the time, saying that, my gosh, she didn't have a choice. That was her only option. That was her only way out, even though Gypsy Rose herself has said everyone has a choice. She did say another time that she could have done something different. Quote, love how we all gang up on a traumatized child and say her reactions to years of abuse were inappropriate. Like that kind of doesn't severely mess you up. Honestly, in these types of cases, I don't blame the victim for killing their abuser at any point. I believe Gypsy Rose is innocent and was in the right to murder her mom. The mother deserved it. Now, when Gypsy Rose says everybody has a choice, does that kind of shut down the conversation of people declaring that she didn't have a choice? Also, when people say that her mother deserved to be murdered, Gypsy Rose herself has said, no, she didn't. She didn't deserve that.
I'm hearing these words like, your mother was a whatever. She deserved it. And I'm like, no, she didn't.
You know, she says she had a choice. Maybe she's right. Now, there are other factors that could also be manipulating Gypsy Rose into reframing her story after prison. Enter Melissa Moore. Now, I want to head this up by saying that these are all just allegations. It's nothing that we can prove. A lot of it is speculation. So these are theories floating around that a woman named Melissa Moore is pulling the strings for Gypsy Rose, directing her on how to navigate life as an ex-con and how to maximize the profits in the situation and, by extension, maximize her own profit. Yes, I know, but I said we're diving into multiple perspectives, okay? So here's another one that, yeah. So Melissa Moore is herself a victim. She's the daughter of the infamous smiley face killer who made appearances on Dr. Phil and Oprah as a victim advocate. Dr. Phil is a scammer, so and she was later a correspondent on the Dr. Oz show. For sake, he's also a scammer, so yay. Now listen, obviously doctors Phil and Oz are not Melissa. Now to some, it appears Melissa is trying to raise awareness about childhood abuse victims and the violence that can be perpetuated by your own parents.
Melissa's here today. She has a new book called Shattered Silence that Dr. Phil encouraged her to write, and I want Dr. Phil to explain a few things for us. What she was saying, I went to the prison to see my father.
But to the skeptic, because there's always a skeptic, people say Melissa is intent on climbing the Hollywood ladder, and the Gypsy Rose case had indeed caught her eye after Gypsy Rose was sentenced to prison, because Melissa reached out and asked Gypsy Rose to talk, and at first Gypsy Rose refused, but Melissa was persistent, and they would go on to have, months of phone calls and conversations from prison, which Melissa eventually turned into a book. She co-authored Gypsy Rose's memoir titled Released: Conversations on the Eve of Freedom. And that Lifetime series, we've shown a few clips from the prison confessions of Gypsy Rose. Yeah, well, Melissa Moore became an executive producer of the series. So people started to wonder, what was the intention behind her interest in Gypsy Rose?
7 years ago, I was working in daytime talk, and it was an assignment that I was given to go and see if I can secure Gypsy's interview for this daytime talk show. When I sat down to meet with her, she was not interested. She said no, and that's okay. So we sat there and just talked about regular life things, and I found her environment really fascinating. I was in a room full of other inmates, and what I found fascinating as she was sitting across from me is she started to tell me all these other inmates' stories. She's like, that girl over there, she's in for killing her husband. That girl over there, she's horrible to bunk with. I'm like, oh wow, this is like high school on steroids.
Now, when Melissa says that she was working in daytime talk, I believe she's referring to the segment that she had on the Dr. Oz show as their true crime correspondent. But during this interview, I think it's fairly clear that she feels a sense of attachment to Gypsy Rose and even a sense of obligation. Melissa says that she was disappointed when Gypsy Rose got married. Oh, by the way, Melissa says all of this right in front of ex-husband Ryan's face, which, ouch, yeah.
For me, I got really attached. I saw a vision for Gypsy that maybe wasn't her own vision, but I had a vision for Gypsy that she was going to walk out of prison, go into the safety and security of her parents' arms, and have this relationship that she never got with her parents, and that she was going to discover who she is, explore freedoms for the first time, riding a bike, driving a car, eating real food, different foods. Like, she was eating prison food for the first time. That was her first taste of real food. It's prison food. So
I ruined her vision. I did.
Melissa had a vision for Gypsy Rose's life after prison, which listen, okay, I'm not trying to make any direct claims here, but if I was just going off of first impressions, yeah, maybe Melissa has, good intentions, but to the skeptics, make it feel like, she could either have gotten, just a little too close to her subject, and Gypsy Rose is considered her subject, being that she's co-authored her memoir and executive produced a show that makes Gypsy Rose, a subject as well. So is she just misspeaking, or was she doing the Hollywood, song and dance of twisting parts of the narrative a bit to pull at the heartstrings of her readers and viewers? So the allegation goes Melissa is the one who has been pushing Gypsy Rose to be an influencer. But honestly, again, Gypsy Rose is a whole grown-ass woman. I don't know why some people insist on forgetting that part of this. She is. Has she developed at a different rate? Absolutely. Two things can be true at the same time. That could be true, and she could also be a grown woman and a very articulate woman. I'm never not going to point that out. Gypsy Rose, the girl can talk, and she can talk articulately. I don't even know if that's a word. She probably knows that more than I do. I think she wanted to be an influencer, hence the books and the interviews and the shows. And let's be real, the internet was going to make her an influencer whether she chose it or not. And I'm sure making likely millions of dollars right out of prison has a nice feel to it.
Honestly, I tried to get in, I'm trying to do more like influencer videos on social media, fashion, because when I first came out of prison, apparently I was very not on fashionable.
Oh no.
Like the outfits that I wore and stuff like that. Like I had friends to let me know what was trendy, but as for everyday things, I am so far behind. So now I've been sort of Googling and trying to figure out and follow the trendy stuff, and make cute little makeup videos and tutorials and stuff.
And then there's the ever-evolving theory that maybe this isn't a case of Munchausen syndrome by proxy at all. And before I discuss this, let me preface, there have been multiple experts who have diagnosed Dee Dee with this disorder after she was murdered. You might notice a few issues there. Ethically speaking, how can a professional diagnose someone with a mental disorder when you can't even evaluate them? And if you try to stretch it to say, well, we'll diagnose based on what Gypsy Rose says, still, how can a professional diagnose a person who is no longer here based off the statements of someone else where you'll never be able to fact check a lot of it, and she might have something to gain from the statements she's giving, allegedly. So then we wind up with even more confusing statements, like Gypsy Rose saying this about Dee Dee, quote, she was diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia when she was a little younger, and so she was not taking medication for that. Followed by this confusing thing from another publication, quote, Blanchard also said her mother had schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. It is unclear whether Dee Dee had been diagnosed with the disease, was taking medication for it, or if others noticed her unusual behavior during her frequent public appearances and medical appointments. It is a slippery slope. Listen, I'm not saying Gypsy Rose is lying, but, and yes, I said but, do these muddy circumstances that no one except Gypsy Rose could possibly know the full story of, and even then I don't know that Gypsy Rose knows the full story of the bipolar and all of that, I don't know. Could statements from Gypsy Rose, which again also, Gypsy Rose was heavily allegedly drugged by her mother for many years, and she was a developing brain, so that kind of a lot of things up too. Could statements from Gypsy Rose give a professional actual authority to diagnose a dead person? I think I know the answer, but will all my mental health professionals just like chime in the chat? Let me know your thoughts on this. How do you feel about this? Now, I will note there were doctors, one in particular, who suspected while Dee Dee was alive that she potentially had Munchausen syndrome by proxy and, made notes of it before the act. But it was never pursued. So it's still just speculation. But you know, the majority of the world has just gone ahead and run with that diagnosis of her mother. And yeah, but then you have folks like Dr. Mark Feldman, a psychology consultant for the HBO documentary series Mommy, Dead and Dearest, who diagnosed Dee Dee with Munchausen syndrome by proxy despite having never met the Blanchards.
I gotta start from the beginning here. The Munchausen syndrome by proxy, how did that develop in Dee Dee Blanchard? I'm sure every case is a little bit different, but what did you see here that's maybe unique?
Well, Dee Dee seems to have grown up as a rather entitled young woman. She is one of multiple siblings, but was the youngest and was favored, it seems like, by the parents. She did get entitled as a result, felt that people should reach out to her, provide her with gifts, benefits. She got a car early on when her siblings didn't. And that entitlement and possible history of being medicalized by her own mother in a pattern that could be Munchausen by proxy, I think predisposed her to this sort of behavior.
And he was compensated for his appearance. I mean, the media took this informal diagnosis and just ran with it, and so did much of the world.
Notice Feldman admits he searched the internet to find out facts about the case. Well, this is just ludicrous. Doctors don't search the internet to diagnose someone with a rare disorder. In fact, Feldman had never treated Dee Dee Blanchard. He was brought into the case by HBO, who were working closely with the Blanchards to make a pro-Gypsy documentary. Feldman was paid handsomely.
So stay with me for a sec. Here's another comment from my first doc. Quote, "The real overlooked villains in the case are the doctors who let the medical abuse happen for years and doing unnecessary procedures without even looking if she needed them." Talking about all the procedures that were done on Gypsy Rose. And I conditionally agree. I agree, and there's like conditions. If there was even one instance of doctors knowingly doing unnecessary procedures, keyword knowingly, then that's a massive problem. And with that in mind, is it then a massive problem to have medical professionals diagnosing someone who they can never evaluate because they're no longer alive? Is that just as unethical? I'm just asking questions here. If somehow Dee Dee didn't actually have MSBP, the implication of that is, you know, to some people is that Gypsy Rose was somehow in on the manipulation. But like, you know, she was a child for much of this. So do we think that a child is capable of being a master manipulator in that regard? I'm sure there are some mental health situations where, but even that, it's just complicated, okay? I'm just gonna leave that one for y'all to decide. Talk about yourself in the class because I'm just gonna set that over there. Now, one thing that I do wanna note before we move on, I saw a lot of requests for me to discuss the swarm of new social media posts claiming that Gypsy Rose had a chromosome disorder that somehow explained all of the treatments that she had and therefore was allegedly proving that all of the surgeries were actually necessary and that Dee Dee wasn't doing anything abusive or wasn't lying. Just being fully transparent, I specifically have chosen not to dig into this because I am not personally comfortable with making claims about Gypsy Rose's health and like a alleged chromosome disorder and potential health conditions, as I believe there's just no way anyone can know the full details without being her doctor who evaluates her, who she consents to. And even then, like, who knows? Like, doctors can get things wrong too, okay? I think with my own experience, just as someone living with chronic illness and invisible illness, I don't want to spend time casting doubt on what Gypsy Rose does or doesn't legitimately have medically when it comes to her health, because I feel like that was done for like most of her life. And it just, you know, like Gypsy Rose, hate Gypsy Rose. At the end of the day, none of us were there. None of us. Wait, is that sound? Is that a baby? I'm sorry, are we about to exit the serious part of the doc and speed run to the unhinged Hollywood bullshit part of this doc? Why, yes. Yes, we are. So buckle up, class. It's time for Babygate.
Hi, everybody. So I know the rumors have been flying around for quite some time now, and I'm happy to announce that I am 11 weeks pregnant. Ken and I are expecting our very first child come January of 2025. We're both very excited. This was not planned at all. It was completely unexpected, but we're both very excited to take on this new journey of parenthood.
Okay, tone shift, because we're talking Hollywood, and Hollywood sucks right now. I mean, have we looked at what's going on? If you're not completely up to speed on the Gypsy Rose relationship saga, then let me break down how we got here. So after the arrest, Gypsy Rose and Nick still considered themselves kind of like boyfriend and girlfriend and continued their relationship for about another year while they were in the same county jail, kind of hiding letters to each other in the recreation room or scribbling messages to each other on the walls. But after being sent to separate prisons, the relationship, naturally fizzled out. Not to mention Gypsy Rose suddenly had plenty of interest from eligible bachelors, inundated with letters from admirers, if you could call them that. And one of those admirers was a man named Ken Urker. And here's where Petty Swoop turns into a tabloid gossiper. The pair first met through a prison pen pal program in 2017. And according to Gypsy Rose, she knew that Ken was the one from the day she first met him. Romantic? Kind of, and a little foreshadowing. They did have a serious relationship, and at one point were engaged to be married before they broke it off because, they needed to take some time apart to focus on themselves and individuals. Now, there was a little kerfuffle between the breakup and stuff. They discussed this on the Vial Files podcast, the second time she appeared on there.
I was holding, resentment, but it's kind of like, because I went on this belief that he had left me and I was brokenhearted, and so I held that resentment. But at the same time, I still loved him in my heart, and so it was torn. My heart was torn.
And you know what? I can respect any relationship that decides to take, some time. Except that Gypsy Rose pretty much immediately then, got with a new man, Ryan, who, as you'll remember, was waiting for her when she was released from prison, had that door open to the sedan. So this is special education teacher Ryan Anderson, Gypsy Rose's now estranged husband. Yes, a lot has happened. I covered their relationship in the last video, but from the jump, the relationship dynamics were off. For starters, Ryan Anderson specifically sought out Gypsy Rose to write to her after years in prison and years of notoriety from the case.
One of those, we were sitting around bored, COVID happened, and I wrote a letter, and it just started that way. I wrote a letter, I didn't think anything of it. It was one of those like, have a good life, and if you'd love to chat more, here's my email address, and if not, take care of yourself. And then she reached out, and it started from there.
But listen, I'm always gonna feel a little, I don't know, I feel a little sideways about people who seek to strike up relationships with convicted murderers and murderer adjacents, second degreeers, especially if they're teachers of children. I don't know, call me cautious. Maybe I'm being weird, but I don't know. Love is love or some shit. After their initial correspondence in 2020, Gypsy Rose and Ryan were eventually married in a prison ceremony in 2022, spending almost 2 more years in prison before her release. And upon release, she spent a lot of time defending Ryan from hate comments on social media, which honestly is never gonna go anywhere. If you get likes and good comments, great. If you get hate, then whatever, because they don't matter. Source of jealousy is because you are rocking my world every night. Yeah, I said it. The D is fire, happy wife, happy life. Period, Gypsy Rose. Period. This was the start of her life as a new married woman, and she's enjoying all of the adult things that come along with that.
The D is
But I guess the D wasn't that fire. Sorry, Ryan, because just 3 months out of prison, it seems like the spark had fizzled out, and Gypsy Rose filed for divorce from Ryan, citing his behavior as controlling.
I had to make a choice for the heart. And so that is when I'm like, okay, I realize where my heart is. I don't want to stay with someone just because they're happy. I need to be happy too.
Yeah.
And I think the selfish thing would have been to stay in a relationship and not let Ryan move on. So I ended the marriage, filed for divorce.
Though for what it's worth, on the Hollywood scale, and trust me when I say I did not watch every post with or about Ryan, because my gosh, the drama. I'm not so much a person into the drama stuff, but I'd go on a limb and say that he seems genuinely hurt and like he had a real investment in the relationship. Quote, I married her because I wanted to spend my life with her. Gypsy was all I ever wanted.
Like when I say I'm blindsided, I really, really am blindsided about how fast things happen. You know, it's one of those, you know, we were married, everything was good, then all of a sudden we're no longer married and we don't see each other. It's a lot to process, man. It's like I'm still in like shell shock mode, I'm still in reflection mode, I'm still in, there's a lot of things I'm trying to piece together.
I'm sure the money didn't hurt, but anyways, I would guess that it must have felt like Gypsy Rose had ripped his heart out when she was spotted with her old flame, Ken Urker, just days after the divorce announcement.
So I ended the marriage, filed for divorce, and then that's when Ken and I reconnected after the fact. As friends, we had a weekend together to see kind of where are we with this.
They had stayed friends after all these years, although some speculate that the friends should be in quotation marks, if you know what I mean.
Where are you at with your divorce proceeding?
We're in the beginning stages, so it's gonna be probably October because we have to wait the 180 days to have this process going. We haven't even had our first court yet, so.
You're not even legally divorced, but you have seemingly found love again. The universe brought you and Ken, your former fiance, back together. Was there ever a part of you that thought, maybe I should pump the brakes and just be by myself for a second?
I felt, over the course of a couple months, I felt like more disconnected from Ryan emotionally. And so having that disconnection already there made it a smooth transition because it's kind of like Ken and I have always remained friends even after our breakup in 2019.
Yeah.
You know,
and we know Ryan has made it very clear he did not like that.
Right. He's been very spoken, and rightfully so. That's his opinion. Those are his to feel. So that is his valid feeling.
But this time Gypsy Rose seemed sure Ken was the one. After reconnecting earlier this month, we realized that our love for each other is simply undeniable and life is too short not to take a chance. We have a history that made for a perfect foundation for a new beginning. Now, side note, am I the only one who's just like, Gypsy Rose, pump the brakes, slow the down, Gypsy Rose. Now, never in a million years did I think that this saga was going to involve chronicling the trail of heartbreak of Gypsy Rose's dating life, but I think that works both ways because, you know, who are these guys deciding to write female inmates, falling in love, and even marrying them, all while still behind bars? This is a thing. It's a thing that happens. It's a thing that I don't understand. I'm willing to understand it, and I don't. So to explain that, I think you know where this is going. Petty University, class is in session. Roll the Hollywood intro. So we've seen the trope, a cold-blooded killer and the woman who loves him, and we've got the research to prove it. Women will stick by their man even when imprisoned. Or look at the many female admirers of Ted Bundy or so-called Deadpool killer Wade Wilson, though they are both considered more conventionally attractive. That sounds gross to say, which is, you know, yeah, it's an oxymoron. But like even Eric and Lyle Menendez have found relationships and wives behind bars. But when the roles are reversed, the story starts to get weirder. The abandonment of women prisoners by their spouses has been recognized by researchers and practitioners as a noteworthy component of women inmates' subculture and a significant factor of their rehabilitation and re-entry into society. So if you're a married woman headed into prison, you might as well kiss that marriage goodbye. But for single female prisoners, there's a different phenomenon. Thirsty men who want to talk, have a relationship with, and sometimes even marry female inmates. Now, is it all bad? No, it's just, I have questions. Prison officials say inmates convicted of the most heinous crimes tend to attract the most attention from pen pals. That is so interesting. Remember, Ryan specifically sought out Gypsy Rose because her case had caught notoriety on par with that of the Tiger King case. Now, to his credit, Ken was hitting up Gypsy Rose's inbox from the early days, and he talked about seeing a thing, and he felt compassion for her. And even after their engagement broke off, he never lost touch entirely. So is this true love? Can I muster up the care? Probably not, but I do think it's, it's a little fair to question the motives of these men, and I'm not the only one. Quote, let's be very clear. Anyone who goes after someone who is in prison in a romantic way is usually not all right in the head themselves, aka her husband.
They always say don't put a man's name on your body. I kind of messed up with that a little bit back in the day, back in 2018, 2018, I had put a K on my ankle for Ken.
Whether conscious or subconscious, both men stood to gain fame or infamy by association with Gypsy Rose, though this is definitely kind of like a double-edged sword. Ryan Anderson had the unfortunate experience of losing out on a job opportunity because his marriage to Gypsy Rose was deemed inappropriate, which, yeah, but that brings up something else that's interesting. So, Gypsy Rose is not allowed to benefit financially from her story, but she has been compensated for her documentary appearances, and her social media platforms are another source of revenue, along with potential brand sponsorships, which, we're gonna get into in a minute. But could Ken or Ryan potentially be trying to share in the profits from this? They endlessly promote her book and her shows and appear in the reality shows. So on one hand, it feels like the most kind of like unhinged way to cash in on a murder, but I don't know, y'all. What do you think? And let's remember, a relationship is a two-way street. Does Gypsy Rose really love these men, seeing how quickly she moved from one to the next, from Nick to Ken to Ryan, then back to Ken?
So, of course, we've now seen you come out of prison. You were married. You're now going through a divorce. You have found love again with someone from your past. Is tonight date night?
No, unfortunately, tonight's not date night.
Okay.
He lives in Dallas, and I live in Louisiana, so.
How are you making it work when you live in two different states? What's the secret to keeping that flame alive?
He's actually going to be moving to Louisiana to be closer to me, so.
So you're moving quick.
I wouldn't say quick. With our history, I think that we've always had a very close connection.
Do you feel like this is the one? This is the person for you that you were always meant to be with?
I do. I've always said Ken was my soulmate, so.
Yeah?
I don't know. I'm just speculating, but there could be some, codependence challenges. Many of us have experienced codependence in some form. First with her mother, then with the men that she chooses to date. Or another perspective, perhaps predatory people target her because re-victimization is a very real thing. Quote, a codependent parent is one who has an unhealthy attachment to their child and tries to exert excess control over the child's life because of that attachment. Of course, Dee Dee allegedly established a physical dependency between her and Gypsy Rose for years with all of, the medications, the feeding tubes, the surgeries, but codependency is a notoriously hard thing to spot in a relationship. So let's pull back for a quick second away from the story as I try to do this, once in a while to discuss the signs to look out for if you or someone is being controlled by someone else, in your life, in their life. In the case of a parent-child codependency, it can look like over-involvement. For example, if a parent sees that something painful is happening in their child's life, they'll try to gain control by getting involved, often too involved. Dee Dee allegedly controlled Gypsy Rose's every move. Like, I know there's discussion around how Gypsy Rose could, go out on her own and left home for another creepy-ass man at one point who I firmly believe was preying on her. But for much of the time, Dee Dee rarely allowed her out of her sight. And, when she wanted to play with other kids outside, she was forbidden. Inappropriate caretaking. Codependent parents will do more for their child than what is age appropriate. Again, Dee Dee consistently treated Gypsy Rose as younger than her age and even lied to her about her birth year. Incorrect shouldering of responsibility. Codependent parents often feel responsible for their child's feelings and take the blame for their child's mood swings. Another major sign of a codependent parent is one who knowingly or unknowingly uses psychological games to get their child to do what they want. This might come in the form of passive-aggressive behavior. This is when a parent is being indirectly aggressive towards their child. Projection. This happens when a parent can't handle their feelings or believes that the feelings are unacceptable. Generating guilt. This occurs when a parent attempts to make their child feel guilty about something to pressure them into behaving how they want them to behave. In the Confessions of Gypsy Rose doc, Gypsy Rose says that her mother raised her on all of these, like Disney fairy tales, and that she really truly thought that a Prince Charming would one day come in to save her. Outdated tropes that, don't really encourage women to think for themselves. But I'm not declaring anything, but I could easily think that Gypsy Rose may tend to cling on to, one man until the next one comes along because of the, the possible codependence her mom exposed her to. And of course, let's not forget that she needed Nick to do the act to kill her mother for her rather than she doing it herself. So could a codependent upbringing make the child prone to inherent need for a relationship? Well, according to Healthline, children of codependent mothers may find it challenging to set boundaries in other relationships as they grow up. They might feel guilty or anxious about asserting their own needs or desires, fearing it might hurt or alienate others. So bad with setting boundaries and being in a relationship are just, they're not a good mix. I think Miss Girl needs to have, maybe her eat, pray, love moment to figure out who she is without a man, but also, that's just, or maybe we're all just flailing and no one knows what the hell life even is. Class dismissed. Fast forward to today. Gypsy Rose is almost 8 months pregnant, and the father is, well, that's actually a complicated question, as it turns out. After enduring months of online rumors that Gypsy Rose was pregnant with Ryan's baby, she published the results of a paternity test on IG that conclusively proved that Ken was the father. There's been a lot of chatter around the paternity of our baby, and while we've known for sure from the beginning, I feel that it's finally time to put all those theories to rest. Here are the results showing Ken is the father. Ken is going to be an incredible dad, and we are excited to welcome our baby girl into the world. But, and here's where it gets just really kind of a little bit wild, Ryan Anderson is also the father. What?
You are the father.
Gypsy Rose's ex, Ryan, will be listed as her daughter's father. This is because their divorce wasn't finalized for 300 days before the time of the baby's birth due date. Due to the state law, the only way Ken's name will go on the birth certificate is if Anderson signs an affidavit confirming that he is not the baby's father. If I were Ryan Anderson in this situation, dude, imagine that inner dialogue. Not only has the woman who, he called the love of his life moved on immediately with another guy and gotten pregnant by this other guy within a month, but now he's somehow legally and presumably financially responsible for the child that she had with the guy she told him not to worry about. I mean,
honestly, I have been trying to have a very civil conversation with Ryan about everything because we don't communicate often. And I think that I really just wanted to have that closure, that one conversation that kind of closed everything up. Unfortunately, I feel like I'm in a place of higher healing and an elevated healing than he is right now. And so I've kept my distance, hoping that he could find that happiness and that healing for himself.
But don't worry, there was time for some petty drama too. She recently made and then deleted a TikTok responding to a video of her ex-husband Ryan dancing with another woman, calling it inappropriate, while she's literally having another man's baby with his name on it. So,
So I want to address a little comment that I made yesterday on a video. I'm sure all of you have clipped it and screenshotted it and seen it. So if you're in this live and you're watching, go ahead and clip this portion of the video. I want to explain why I put the comment that I put on a video that I seen of Ryan dancing with a woman. I want Ryan to move on. And this I don't talk about Ryan in my lives because I don't want to. I don't have to, I don't want to. I have lots of other things to talk about. Yesterday when I came across this video, for the last, I want to say, couple weeks, Ryan has increasingly kind of gotten on my nerves. I mean, he was my husband. I can say that, okay? And we are still technically married. So I think it's completely normal for people to go back and forth with each other in little tit-for-tat ways. Okay, we are not, I'm not gonna say we're on bad terms, but we're not on good terms. We're just on terms. When I seen the video, I was not jealous. I am happy for him. If he wants to go and dance with a million girls, if he wants to go to a club, cool, I'm happy. I don't care. I want him to find someone and I want him to be happy. But what I am disappointed in is society.
Now, Gypsy Rose and Ken said the pregnancy wasn't planned, and not that a baby isn't a gift. it's just a very sudden gift, you know, and her fans seem to think so, but many of them also seem to forget the fact that Gypsy Rose and Ken's relationship predates her marriage to Ryan by quite a bit of time. And I'm not gonna, you know, yuck anyone's yum. Gypsy Rose seems happy with Ken. Love looks like spending time and feeling your complete self with another. It's so cliche, but it gives you wings. But you know, she has said similar things about Ryan just months ago, so who bloody knows? It doesn't even matter. If we are to believe that prison rehabilitation is doing its job, then she's legally technically served her time and can now have a, you know, somewhat regular civilian life, and, you know, she can get knocked up with the best of them in maternal bliss.
When I found out that I was pregnant, none of anything else mattered. The drama on social media, the feud between creator and me and all of that drama just all faded. It didn't matter anymore.
Oh, honey, I am so not threatened by you. My man wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole. You're just mad because I have a Chad. And last time I checked, you don't have a man. So, looks like you're the one that's panini pressed. Call a spade, honey. Keep making content.
All that matters is making sure that I'm healthy, the baby's healthy, my relationship with Ken is healthy, and we are moving forward in a positive way.
But here's the rub. Remember, perspectives. Some people are super annoyed for reasons like this. Her pregnancy announcement originally included a link in the description to her baby registry, essentially asking viewers, to buy her things without saying it directly. The link was since removed, but her registry included a $600 Chico modular travel system, a $529 Sorel Princeton Elite panel crib and changer, 2 $300 bassinets, a $320 monitor, a $250 rocking chair, and a $215 diaper bag. Yes, I looked up the diaper bag because I'm a thorough bitch, and how the f does anyone afford to be a parent with those prices? Holy shittlebits.
She's super rich. She posted this public registry. It sold out in over 30 minutes. In less than an hour, it sold out. And then, after her fans bought everything on her registry, she added more items, and that sold out too. However, you can go to babylist.com and buy a gift card for Gypsy Rose Blanchard if you want to do that. Do you?
So, people call this dry bagging. This seems to be a potentially emerging term, but it is understood as a psychological tactic used to elicit a desired response or action from others without directly requesting it. This phenomenon has gained traction in recent years, particularly with the rise of social media and digital communication platforms where indirect appeals for attention, sympathy, or material assistance can reach a wider audience with just a few keystrokes. It's kind of the verbal equivalent of leaving a tip jar, or like, the social media equivalent of like having, the Venmo or Cash App on the screen for your post, which Gypsy Rose doesn't have, presumably, but she does have links to her Amazon storefront, which, fair. Now, I do find this impulse to ask her followers to contribute to her baby costs interesting, especially given how Dee Dee used her child, aka Gypsy Rose, for charity donations. Is there a factor of manipulation here, whether intentional or unintentional? And it brings up another question. How should we feel about Gypsy Rose profiting off of her name, which is tied so directly to her crime? Is that considered profiting off of her crime? In the state of Louisiana, laws allow her to keep some of the proceeds from her appearances or stories derived from her likeness. Any proceeds from a contract with a defendant relating to a depiction or discussion of the defendant's crime in a movie, book, newspaper, magazine, radio, or television production, or live entertainment or publication of any kind shall not be subject to court order requiring payment of such proceeds to the treasurer unless an integral part of the work is a depiction or discussion of the defendant's crime or an impression of the defendant's thoughts, opinions, or emotions regarding such crime. Wow, that was long. In layman's terms, Gypsy Rose could potentially be allowed to keep the money earned from her story. I don't know. There's one school of people who think that she's been through hell, let her make money, and then there's others who think she caused hell, let her burn. And it's not the first time that we've let a murderer, a second degreeer, or an alleged murderer achieve a degree of celebrity? Sure, OJ was a football player, but the case only made him more famous when he found ways to profit off of it once acquitted. Y'all remember the If I Did It memoir from him? Yeah, that's nasty work.
6 uninterrupted minutes. OJ puts himself, hypothetically, at the scene of the crime.
The chapter 6 is called The Night in Question. And you write in the book, now picture this and keep in mind that this is
Purely
hypothetical.
hypothetical. Yes.
Why don't you tell me what might have happened on the night of June 12th, 1994? And let's just walk through the night.
Well, first of all, this is very difficult for me to do this. It was very difficult for me because it's hypothetical. I know and I accept the fact that people are going to feel whatever way they're going to feel. You know, they're going to, whatever they want to feel.
Gypsy Rose and Ken Urker's child is due in January of 2025. And one thing that's a growing concern is, since Gypsy Rose has been monetizing her pregnancy to some degree, does she intend to become a mommy vlogger? Is there the possibility that Gypsy Rose may do as many a family channel has done and use her own child as content for a source of income? And why does that sound so familiar to this story?
I'm your mom.
I'm your dad.
And you are a girl.
And this is the sad part about abuse. This is kind of the generational cycle inside. There's the classic cycle of abuse inside of a relationship. And there can be, you know, kind of a pattern, a cycle of generational trauma and abuse. You know, a pattern of behaviors that one child takes from their parent, you know, grows up and in turn behaves in a similar nature. It's not a guarantee, of course. And we won't know if Gypsy Rose is going to vlog her family, even though the reality shows, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. But, you know, the bun is still in the oven. And so we don't know. We don't know.
That you have to make sure that you protect, you love, you take care of, and all of the things that I wished I could have had when I was little. Here I am getting emotional, guys, sorry. All the things that I wanted in a mother, I want to give to this baby. You know, knowing that I am a mother now. And I'm happy. And I just want to be a good mother for my child. I want to be everything my mother wasn't.
But like, literally think about it. If Gypsy Rose ever started making, you know, family vlog type content with her child or continued the reality show, number one, yes, family vlogging is a very slippery slope to child exploitation. Just ask the very brave Sherry Frankie, who recently gave a scathing statement about the evils of family vlogging after what she survived from her mother, Ruby Frankie. But also, content lives forever. Think about it. No matter what, that innocent child will forever be followed by the criminal actions of her mother in some degree.
You will have to have a conversation with your daughter. You're a long way away from that,
Right.
obviously. What thoughts have you put into that?
That conversation is going to come up someday, and how do I want to address that? How do I want to handle that? And I feel like when she is of the right age to understand, we are going to sit her down together. And also with my dad and Christy, you know, we have that support there, and we're going to explain things in a way that's not overwhelming, but enough to where she understands where my life was at that time. But also, you know, that's why it was so important for me to also write my story in a memoir, because she could read it for herself and see that, you know, I'm not this monster.
If Gypsy Rose starts making content with her child, all bets are off, in my opinion. Navigating fame and fortune is going to be complicated for anyone, and the court of public opinion so easily sways from she's a hero to she's a villain that I think eventually her child is unfortunately going to get in the crosshairs. And, you know, I don't think family vlogging would be a good idea. I rarely think it's a good idea. I think there are some people who handle it appropriately, but I don't know how this would go. But on the flip side, while getting pregnant so soon after prison release is sudden, parenting could also somehow become a part of her healing process. And for Gypsy Rose's sake and her child's sake, I'm rooting for her to just break that cycle.
I fully encourage looking at someone's life in the most truest form. So I'm in support of documentaries. So if she wants to watch my documentaries, I'll let her when she's old enough.
Right.
And reading my book.
So, who do you guess is the most random person that Gypsy Rose could possibly strike up a friendship with? Did you say Kim Kardashian?
Hi, Gypsy.
Hi! It's so nice to meet you.
Kim Kardashian and Gypsy Rose Blanchard joined forces on the latest episode of The Kardashians. Kim, who is studying to become a lawyer, said on episode 8 of the 5th season that she wanted to see what Gypsy Rose wants to do with prison reform.
Aside from how bizarre it is to see them in the same room together, Gypsy Rose appeared on an episode of The Kardashians to have a totally not at all staged conversation about prison reform.
I've been following your case for a really long time.
Really?
So, like, I wouldn't want to come and, really meet with someone that I feel like could make an impact just for, like, the sensation of the case.
Right.
I recognize that, like, you can make a big difference because you can really articulate what you went through and how you can get through it.
In case you haven't been keeping up with the Kardashians, Kim's latest side quest in life is to get a law degree and become involved in prison reform. And honestly, feel how you feel about them. We applaud a woman who is extending her education. It's not an easy thing to do. Now, she hasn't passed the bar yet, more so the baby bar, though I hear that is one bitch of a baby, so, applause.
I received a notice that I didn't qualify for one-on-one therapy.
Wow. You would think that they would want to set you up and give you all of the tools that you would need to be as mentally stable and to be as healed as possible, to come home into society. Why wouldn't they set up all of these programs? It always blows my mind. Just the simple fact that she couldn't get therapy while she was in prison is a problem, and I think that ultimately we want to bring people home that are rehabilitated.
She also explained some of the difficulties she is facing now that she is free.
Reentry's been a whirlwind for me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are living at a residence and they're pressuring us to put me on the lease and I won't pass a background check. I think it's like this system is just it's built to fail.
It really is.
I want to bring awareness. I want to be the person that I wish I had to guide me.
Now, Kardashians aside, Gypsy Rose is really bringing up some great points about the lack of access to mental health services and the lack of focus on rehabilitating incarcerated people. Even when released, the impact that a felony has on one's record, particularly in the US, is devastating. Sometimes for good reason, sometimes not. As Gypsy Rose mentioned, it's hard to be approved for a lease, but it's also tough to pass a background check needed for a job. Quote, there are no federal laws that explicitly prohibit employment discrimination based on a criminal record. However, there are some limits on how much a criminal record may be considered. A number of states have enacted laws that prohibit arbitrary bans on employment applicants with criminal convictions. Gypsy Rose is obviously facing challenges navigating life on the outside. For the average person with a criminal conviction or felony on their record, I can only imagine how much more difficult it would be to get back to normal because, especially in the United States, there's a new normal after you've been incarcerated. And for Gypsy Rose, she's never had a normal day in her life. And I mean, she's about to have a baby 1 month after getting together with a guy, and they can't even live in the same house right now. So yeah, normal.
I'm doing my best to try to make my family proud. There's like an internal battle going on inside because it's like I know that I did something wrong. I paid my consequences, but I feel like half of everybody still wants to condemn me and the other half is rooting for me because I post a selfie and then I'm expected to have this like greater message behind it and I'm like, I'm just having fun.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to like post and I say, and then ghost. And then like
Post
not
and ghost.
post
I
and
like
ghost
that.
and not like pay attention to all the comments and what's being said because not everything has to be such a deep message. I think the way you live your life is moving forward is the deep message.
Maybe Kim is right. Maybe living a normal life is the advocacy. After all, Gypsy Rose served 8.5 years in prison and says that she's now rehabilitated and ready to live a new life. And isn't that the goal of our prison system? And then also I'm so curious, would there be any type of like prison reform and rehabilitation efforts and like advocacy for Nick, being that she orchestrated and asked him and said that she needed him to do this to get her free.
Nick asked me, are we still doing this? Am I still, coming there to do this? Yes or no? And I said yes.
Who talked you into killing your mother?
I did. I I talked him into it.
But then also said that, you know, if he was a real man, then she wouldn't be in the prison in the first place, and kind of blamed, you know, I have questions. Had I met a real man who I confided in to help me get out from under my mother's grasp, I would not be sitting in prison right now. I have questions. I would just wonder if the prison rehabilitation reform extends to him. I don't know. Maybe no one wants it to. I'm just asking questions.
It is very difficult for incarcerated individuals to get the extensive mental health therapy that they would require.
But that's not only the cause that Gypsy Rose has lent her voice to. Her social platforms have had her listed as an advocate for Munchausen syndrome by proxy, but her followers have questioned whether she has done any effective advocacy work since her release, or if she thinks that raising awareness and making paid for compensated appearances is enough.
I think that there is a lot of things in our justice system that needs to be addressed. So I am an advocate for prison reform, but also for abuse victims.
On her YouTube channel, Gypsy Rose has also expressed an interest in working with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, who she and Dee Dee had, you know, taken free trips to Disneyland on behalf of when Gypsy Rose was, you know, faux sick with what Dee Dee was doing.
I was a child. I did not know that my mother was taking advantage of this organization, and it breaks my heart to know that. So I personally have made a donation to Make-A-Wish because I feel like there is nothing that I could ever say that will make that right. However, by giving a donation to Make-A-Wish made me feel like I was giving that wish back to a child, that I was giving back what was taken.
But listen, I know there's a lot of criticism and debate around her advocacy, and I'm kind of somewhere in the neutral area of, like, I would rather someone be bringing awareness to the fact that something exists, even if they don't do it in some specific way that the public wants. And as long as she's not, you know, spreading disinformation, like, I'm not gonna criticize her for making a donation to Make-A-Wish Foundation. I prefer that they would get money rather than no money. But here's my next question. What even makes an advocate? Like, is there some magical rule book? I mean, I know that there are associations, you can get accreditations, but like, in the grand scheme of things, who defines the rules? Is it just based off of actions and intent, or is it based off of what the public expects from someone? Is it a little bit ridiculous to be debating what makes someone or not someone? Is the only way to be considered an advocate by working with an organization? If it is believed that she is a survivor, is Gypsy Rose allowed to consider herself an advocate even if she's not actively working for a cause? Can someone simply call themselves an advocate? Is it up that people even feel the need to judge who is and who isn't a proper advocate, which literally just places stigmas on the work of advocacy? I just sometimes see people get real, like, is splitting the hairs of what makes an advocate. And if someone says that they advocate for someone, or they are an advocate, or they do advocacy work, or they do work that is in efforts to advocate for something, why are we picking these people apart for this stuff? Are they doing good? Are they helping some people? Are some people, maybe not everyone in the world, but are some people getting some type of benefit and help and positivity and healing from whatever it is that person is doing? Because if they are, then can we just leave them alone and let them do something positive? I don't know why we would tear that apart, but people have nothing better to do with their lives sometimes, and they tear that stuff apart. Is Gypsy Rose in that caliber of just trying to do good things now in the world? Time will tell, I guess. I think it's a little early to tell.
Not everything has to be such a deep message. I think the way you live your life is moving forward is the deep message.
Kim Kardashian raised a great point, which never did I think that I would say that sentence, but here we are. Is Gypsy Rose an advocate just by telling her story? As it turns out, kind of. Remember the hashtag Free Gypsy Rose that was going around TikTok? Past reporting in the Miami Herald noticed that back in January of 2024, that the call to free Gypsy Rose on TikTok had led to new hashtags calling for the release of other convicted criminals in high-profile cases, namely the Menendez brothers. Poster @BoringGirlBex compared the Blanchard and Menendez cases in a video captioned, "Just thinking out loud here, I think perhaps they deserve another trial or even a resentencing." Another user known as Shady Williams compared the abuse of the two cases and calls this situation unfair. And yes, friends, I have a massive deep dive doc on the Menendez brothers coming very, very soon. Did you know that they could go free in a few weeks? Now, this was a whole 6 months before the Netflix series, which examined and dramatized the case. It was called Monsters, the Eric and Lyle Menendez story. Before that was released, and do I have a lot of thoughts about that? Stay tuned, stay tuned. Like, even Gypsy Rose kind of a little bit has a take on their case, a little bit, sort of, when she was approached at an airport by TMZ to get her thoughts on the story.
I'm not really educated in that case, but I will say that I'm an advocate for abuse victims in general.
She even offered advice to the brothers prior to their hearing, sort of.
I would say take your time and, adjust properly and get therapy because you'll need it.
I think that's a pretty, honest, thoughtful take as best she's can give, except yes, there are claims that Gypsy Rose never went to therapy in prison at all. Not for lack of services, but because she, quote, didn't need it.
This is what upsets me so much is everything that I have been through, okay? When I got to prison, I asked them if I could get therapy and really deal with the trauma that I went through. I received a notice that I didn't qualify for one-on-one therapy.
Somebody sent me a clip of Gypsy talking to Kim Kardashian, and this is for you, Kim. Gypsy lied straight to your face. Straight to your face. Because all you gotta do is fly a kite and you can go to mental health. I did it, and just for being afraid of mustard. Put me on a lie detector test. I want somebody to put me on a lie detector test. Seriously, because she told me she did not need help. That she's fine. That's not true. At all. You can get help in prison. And especially the prison that we went to, because I'm doing good. I took prison for what it was, and I did good. It teaches you stability. She even got in trouble for tricking men while she was there.
According to the Department of Corrections in Missouri's website, any prisoner that is in their system can get access to mental health care at any time. They can request mental health services at any time during their incarceration, not just at intake. And all they have to do is make an appointment. That's it. Gypsy just didn't want help.
This comes from her former cellmate, Rachel Garlick, who claims that Gypsy Rose didn't actually think she needed help and in fact denied those services. Now, it's worth mentioning there is definitely some beef between these two women. I broke it down in part 1, but we will leave that there.
So there were some people that got in Gypsy's ear, and there was a big misunderstanding. Our friendship's fine. Everything's great now, guys. But Gypsy's been really stressed out due to the mixed information that she's been getting from haters. So we just think it's best that we take everything down pertaining to her. So I'm giving you a welcome invitation to unfollow me, but this TikTok will be about me and my family, and I hope to make it good for you guys.
The Missouri Department of Corrections states that mental health services are available to any inmate who needs them, and that mental health evaluation is done upon intake. Now, does that mean that if they say it's available, that it actually is? No, I'm not saying it's not. Honestly, probably only Gypsy Rose knows if Gypsy Rose went to therapy, and at the end of the day, it's none of our business if she did or not in prison. She says that she has after release, and that she's even doing couples therapy with Ken. So I'm just mentioning this controversy to cover some of the bases, but just take it with a little pinch of that little salt.
And so, currently we're doing this it's like a couples therapist mixed with a parenting therapist. Okay. So It has a little bit of both in there. And so we just started that not long ago. And, I really wanted to do that because I still do my individual therapy on a regular. And so I'm like, but there's so much that is being put on us right now and on the relationship that I'm like, you know what? How about we start couples therapy?
It's also worth mentioning that Gypsy Rose respects and appreciates Kim for her thoughts on prison reform, yes, but Kim is also known for having a reality show centered around her family, so I don't know, maybe Gypsy Rose is taking a cue there as well.
I think a lot of people are afraid of touching me as a topic.
Really?
Because I'm too controversial. So I give you like massive props for being like, okay, I'm gonna come do this right now. But I feel very new at it. So I kind of feel like, what are my resources?
Where do you go and how do you?
Yes, where do you begin?
I can totally help you with that because I had no clue.
Okay.
And I think I figured out the best team that can possibly help people, and I'm happy to introduce you to all of them.
Oh, I would appreciate that.
Will guide you in the right direction and what to do to help.
As for that prison reform advocacy, for the moment, again, there's no time limit. I know people want things urgently, but there's technically no time limit here. It does seem to be taking a back seat to things like get ready with me videos and makeup routines, which, a girl is allowed to have a little fun. But yeah, when you have a big platform that you're profiting from and specifically designating yourself and giving the stamp of the word advocate on your bios and stuff, I think, it's also fair to say that it comes with a certain level of responsibility, if I have to speak to it. And to think that this whole conversation somehow started with Kim Kardashian. Gypsy Rose has made her aspirations of becoming an influencer pretty clear, even though she often says she's not a celebrity, but the girl is a celebrity, okay? Can we just get that out of the way? Whether, it's having an impact on prison reform or becoming a brand ambassador.
So currently I am thinking about, or at least trying to get more established in social media as being an influencer. So we'll see how it goes for me. I'm very new at this, but I do have a very big platform, and let's see what I do with it. Guess you guys will have to tune in and watch.
Across her platforms on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, Gypsy Rose had changed, but had over 25 million followers. That is freaking ridiculous. Seriously, I get the fascination, but also I can't get to the point of making someone a celebrity who did in fact admit to participating in planning and plotting and murdering her mother, and did say it's her fault that Nick is in prison for the rest of his life, and that she did have a choice, and that she could have chosen something differently, and that her mother didn't deserve it. Okay, it's just not my thing. But with that amount of reach on social media, she's got to be making money off of TikTok at like the creator fund at minimum, because who else would be funding her supposed $700 beauty routine?
And so for my skincare routine at night, I use Lancome. So I start with the cleanser at night, and then I move on to the serum, which that just helps tighten pores and kind of smooth fine lines and wrinkles. And then moving on to the nightly moisturizer. So this moisturizer can be used at night or in the morning, at any time.
Gypsy Rose is definitely trying to make a splash for herself in the beauty community, and she's expressed interest in collaborating with Rare Beauty and a Luxe Unfiltered Self Tanner, both of which she uses in her routine, to which I say, good luck with that. Like, listen, I don't know, man. Are beauty brands lining up to sponsor actual convicted second-degree murderers to promote them? I don't know. Are the Menendez brothers going to be the next influencers sweeping the globe promoting Calvin Klein cologne? Do they make cologne? I think that, yeah. You can tell how much luxury I buy. Gypsy Rose does in fact get the celebrity treatment, like red carpets, glam photo shoots, selfies, designer outfits, autographs, and apparently a restaurant in Louisiana offered her and her then husband Ryan Anderson a big discount if they dine there. And companies have legitimately started sending PR packages to Gypsy Rose in anticipation of her newborn child, like these baby items from Cozy Crew Club, which, okay, baby sponsorships generally mean the baby has to be filmed or photoed and posted on social media using the products, aka maybe family vlogging, aka potentially exploiting your child for profit if it is handled in a poor fashion. I'm not saying she's going to, and I'm not saying everyone who posts pictures of the kids are manipulating and exploiting their children. I'm not saying that. There's a way to do it, and there's a way of Ruby Frankie. So, things are looking they're just looking, okay? I just hope this doesn't wind up in the cesspool at some point. Now, with her reality series like Life After Lockup and a memoir release on the horizon, it looks like she's fully pursuing the celebrity/influencer/advocate route and is becoming a bona fide celebrity at this point. But also, we as the audience, we have to remember that we feed the beast. Not to say the machine, not to say that these big studios don't play a part in that. I'm sure that they saw the TikTok trends of, free Gypsy Rose everywhere, calling her queen, etc. And obviously they did as Hollywood does and exploited the hell out of it and will suck all the marrow out of that bone until it's dry, baby. But in a lot of ways, it's society that has made her into a celebrity. There were even rumors that Gypsy Rose was on The Masked Singer and, performer as a macaron. No, spoiler alert, it wasn't Gypsy Rose, but let's hope Dancing with the Stars isn't on the horizon, and my gosh, I'm sure that it is. But back to society. Article headlines referred to Gypsy Rose as America's sweetheart, if you can imagine. Yeah, America's sweetheart. One TikToker who claimed in a video to be watching at the prison that Gypsy Rose is at with a welcome home Gypsy Rose sign garnered 22 million views. Another person taped up large pictures of Blanchard and added her face to mini cupcakes in a TikTok that gained 2 million views. So, does Gypsy Rose like the fame? That's the question, right? Quote, "I don't like the fame, but one thing I can do with it is some good." Now, I'm not gonna say that she hasn't done some good. I think she's done and said some things that are informative. Again, she's very, very articulate. It is impressive how well spoken she is. I also don't know if she doesn't like the fame because she also feeds it. She feeds it a lot, so.
Tonight is Ken's birthday, and I want to look absolutely stunning. This screams Kim Kardashian. I'm no Kim K, but I think she'd be proud of this. Now I just need to pair it with the right shoes. This looks too comfortable. So I went with the boots. Oh my God, gorgeous.
But then again, wouldn't you know, because just as I was taking a break while filming this, I looked up some Gypsy Rose headlines, just to see maybe there's an update or something. And she might be taking that step away from social media after all. According to People, and I'm just, going to read the full thing here, quote, "Gypsy Rose Blanchard is keeping her personal life private in the future. In an update on TikTok on Saturday, November 16th, the 33-year-old said that she is no longer sharing personal content on her social media accounts in order to protect herself and her family. Blanchard, who is currently expecting her first baby with boyfriend Ken Urker, wrote, "I will no longer be posting personal content on this public platform. Since I was released, I have shared with my supporters my hardships and achievements through the lens of social media. However, I find myself at a crossroads that leads me to desire a more private life, sharing with only family and close friends these special moments. I greatly appreciate all the support and anyone who has ever stood by my side. I will keep posting updates on my memoir, My Time to Stand, as well as our seasons with Lifetime TV." And here's the thing, I have thoughts, because this is one of those things that a lot of people have been saying, Gypsy Rose, please just take a step back from social media. It's moving too fast. Everything's moving too fast. Don't share everything. Just go off and live a quiet life somewhere and get to know yourself outside of someone's control. And I think that that's a valid take. That was kind of my take before, in part one, when I was like, I just think the instant celebrity thing, I don't think it's good for anybody. It's funny because I look at this and on one hand, it's like, this is probably really great and healthy, and I think it's a good idea. And at the other side, not to criticize, not to be critical, because I kind of hope this is the way it plays out, but I am curious why this decision, and maybe it's because, the baby is very quickly due, but I also find it interesting that, she also plugs her memoir, which she's allowed to do, but it's interesting, and then also says that, she'll be sharing her life on additional seasons with the Lifetime TV reality show. So is this like keeping everything private and safe and protected, or is it just kind of funneling it more towards reality TV? And reality TV in general is just kind of fucking ridiculous. Let's be real, that, I don't know what any of this means. Again, it's one of those time will tell things. Will she become a mommy vlogger eventually at some point because there is big money in that? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm gonna leave that there.
I'm just a person. Like, I'm not a celebrity. And so my reactions to things are like, oh, if it becomes overwhelming, just get rid of it, delete it. So, I became overwhelmed and I'm like, I don't do this anymore. And so I deleted an Instagram with 8 million followers.
But to circle back where we started this whole thing, with all the newfound fame and fortune, I still can't help but think about her family and her former partner in crime, Nick John, who recently filed an appeal citing ineffective assistance of counsel, which was recently denied, with the Court of Appeals siding with the trial judge saying no. And regarding him wanting to have had an expert witness to testify about his autism, and I'm paraphrasing here, they also expressed that he essentially would not have needed an expert in trial and that the trial was not inherently biased and that the conviction would have been the same regardless. So once again, it looks like Nick John, who murdered Dee Dee Blanchard along with Gypsy Rose in her second degree, will continue to spend the rest of his natural life in prison without the possibility of parole. No psychiatric facility, no rehabilitation program in that regard, and potentially not the kind of mental health support that I also think he needs. Again, something that I never hear people talk about, and something that we dove into before, is when his own mother, the woman who raised him and knew him best more than anyone in the world, unfortunately she's no longer here, said that the doctors who diagnosed him told her that, he would likely always have the mental development of a 15 or 16-year-old. And does that mean something?
So that's why we kind of, treat him like when he was last doctor he talked to, they said his mind is probably always going to be 15, 16, right around there.
Was he vulnerable? Was he misled? We'll never know. All we can do is speculate. I think that Nick's story is incredibly complicated, and I do think, just like Gypsy's story, I think that Nick's story, which is now often being forgotten with all the celebrity and everything of Gypsy Rose, I think Nick's story is incredibly complicated, and I do think that there was some level of vulnerability and maybe misplaced love and idea of how you're supposed to express that love that moved him to commit this crime that he was asked to do. And again, if people are giving her standing ovations, they're calling her America's sweetheart, giving her, that she's a hero, that she's an icon for finally breaking free of her mother's grasp. Does that mean then we're supposed to look at the man who is the one who freed her from her mother's grasp? Is he supposed to be considered a hero as well? It's that question that I keep getting stuck on because, number one, I'm not gonna call him a hero. What he did was very violent. I don't believe violence is ever the answer. Gypsy Rose herself said they had a choice, this wasn't the right choice. But if she's an icon, deserving of applause and a second chance and rehabilitation and therapy and care, yeah, that's where I get caught up. I don't know, maybe it's the compassion side of me, and maybe I shouldn't feel that way. Maybe he just is exactly where he belongs and it should stay that way permanently. But even then, I don't feel good about saying that. I just feel like everyone deserves psychiatric care, mental health treatment.
Hi, honey. I'm doing it.
But I don't know, maybe that's just me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Again, what Nick did, what they did was incredibly violent. We can't ignore that. Do I think it's fair or healthy that Gypsy Rose is now a highly lucrative celebrity with a TV series, book deals, glamorous events, sponsors, potentially paying her millions of dollars based off of what she did, but also what she survived? She survived, she also did, The two things can coexist at the same time. She survived terrible things, she did terrible things. What is the final takeaway of this? And is there one? I still think at the end of the day, when reflecting on the totality of this story, none of this really sits right with me. And I don't think it ever will. So all I can do is hope that everyone involved in this story gets the help and the healing that they need, and that this coming baby, this beautiful gift of joy, is surrounded by love and given a fair chance at a happy life. I truly hope for that for all of them. Whew! child, I am exhausted. I think we need a bit of a kitty palate cleanser, and then I will conclude with my final thoughts. So be sure to grab your very own brand new pieces from the Unbroken collection and the Valid Ribcage collection by tapping the link below and in the pinned comment. I am so excited about this new collection. It just means so much to me to be able to share pieces with you that truly come from my heart. I designed these pieces with one goal: to create a positive, empowering reminder that no matter what challenges any of us face in life, no matter what those look like, that there can be something positive. You know, people try to make you feel broken and worthless. Life is chaos, but the truth is nothing can break you. You are incredible, beautiful, valid, and unbroken. You're worthy, no matter what you look like, no matter what you've lived through, who you love, what you want to do in life. Never forget that. I really came to that realization this year with everything going on. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it sucked. But the very fact that I was able to feel it meant I was still fighting and I was still pushing through. And that, by definition, to me means that we are unbroken and that we're pretty cool. We're pretty cool people. And yeah, I just want some positive stuff out there. Yeah, so you can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter, both linked below. That is where I post most often and have polls and check in on life and post opportunities to be featured in upcoming Swoop docs. I also started a Blue Sky. It's the Swoop, so if you want to follow me there. A couple of shout outs from my last doc, The Downfall of Blake Lively and the It Ends With Us disaster. That one goes deep, deep, deep. So check it out. That's linked below. That first shout out goes to Hufflepuff Writes, who says, I was waiting for this doc to drop when everything was going down. Swoop even uncovered a few things regarding Blake's affinity with the antebellum aesthetic that I didn't know about. Thank you for the deep dive, Swoop. You are my petty queen. Yes, those who petty together stay ready together. And second shout out goes to Ross, who says, I knew there was some controversy about this movie, but to have Swoop put it all together into one amazing doc really made me see what was going on, and it's wild. Thank you, Swoop, for yet another amazing doc. Keep it petty. Now, if anyone is interested in being part of, interview questionnaires for upcoming docs, like I've got one for the Nikocado one, please do follow me on Twitter. That is where I make all of the announcements. Also, I have a new second channel. Well, she's officially, I think my second channel, baby, is a year old now. So over here, we do deep dives. Over there, we dip. We don't deep, we dip. They're skinny dips into the unhinged dark waters of the cesspool, where honestly all bets are off. It is much more casual. The videos are shorter, so welcome to the chaos. Huge thank you to our channel members and to our Patreon producers. I have been revamping the whole Patreon page and posting some special extended videos, behind the scenes content. Like I just uploaded behind the scenes vlog of my photo shoot, so you can come along for the ride. I'm also posting additional unhinged videos. I call them the after school special. So there's tons more content coming to my Patreon, especially in the new year. You don't want to miss it. You can also get your name in the credits of all the docs that I post on both channels. So if you would like to have exclusive access and become a member, it is linked below in the description and in the pinned comment as well. Thank you, regardless of anything, just for being here, just for being you, for existing. The subscribing, the sharing, that's all great, but I appreciate you existing. And if someone hasn't told you that, let me be the blue-haired weirdo to tell you that we really do have the most amazing community. And I'm so thankful for each and every single one of you. Huge thank you again to all of you for spending your time with me. And of course to Raycon for sponsoring this doc. If you're ready to grab the best Black Friday deal for the most comfortable and incredible earbuds with super long battery life, amazing sound, active noise cancellation, and the cutest colors, be sure to click the link in the description box below or go to buyraycon.com/swoop today to get up to 30% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get up to 30% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/swoop, and treat yourself, honey. You deserve it. Celebrity comes in many forms and is often molded and shaped by what makes you a celebrity and who is there to help shape it. For many self-starter public figures from the ground up and many content creators and influencers, the thing that molded that type of public figure to have an audience was, just general hard work and gathering of like-minded people. But in Gypsy Rose's case, the Hollywood reality show machine kind of got to her first. And it's safe to say that the traditional reality show machine is generally a bunch of scripted bullshit. Gypsy Rose, who came from a very sheltered and allegedly abusive home and was then in prison, much removed from our present day world for almost a decade, got out of jail only to be immediately swept up into the toxic, bizarre world of red carpets and oversharing. Yes, she has a choice, as she said earlier about the crime. Everyone has a choice, according to her. And in the same breath, she's been simultaneously taught by her mom how to lie and manipulate, and now the traditional reality TV format is teaching her how to fabricate the reality of her life when she is supposed to be starting over fresh. Her entire life, from my perspective, has in a lot of ways been dramatized and dissected and fabricated and manipulated. Has she done some of that herself? Probably. So for her and her child's sake, I really do hope Gypsy Rose can find that fresh start and maybe step away from the spotlight and finds her healing. I think a lot of people in this story could use a lot of healing. But you know, when all else fails, stay ready, stay petty, class dismissed. Swoop!